everyone. Welcome to Cricket Connected. Joining us today, we have Ajit Agarkar and Styris. MS Dhoni is back, everybody. Fans could not be happier, but let's get to the meaty part of this conversation. Some big changes for CSK. Scotty, I've got to ask you, how would CSK go about trying to fill that void that Suresh Raina has now left?
Yeah, tough one, isn't it? A player of that class, a player who's been so good for so long, to suddenly find those runs, and even in the field, the odd over as well with the ball, it's going to be a big task. And I know that CSK squad is deep. They've got a lot of options at the top there. But I also believe that as much as the pressure is now on to find that number three, this is probably the most challenging time that I can recall anyway for CSK, and in particular the leadership of this group. I think with Dhoni and Stephen Fleming, it's up to them now to bring the group together now that they've lost Raina and Harbhajan. A couple of options. They could go with the two overseas players at the top and bring in the youngster Gaikwad as well, or they may decide to have a pinch hitter. I know that Simon Doull, my fellow New Zealander, has suggested maybe Mitchell Santner could go to the top. And then maybe even someone like Jadeja too, who we've seen in Indian colours has been so good. So they need to find that number three. Personally, I'd put Raidu in there to take that spot.
And Ajit, let's chat about the bowling unit with CSK. A big shock for fans when they found out that Harbhajan Singh, the only off-spinner of the team, would not be playing this season. And add to that the fact that now Deepak Chahar is going to be the last one to come in and start training. What's the bowling unit looking like for this team?
I mean, we've seen when they went in the auction, they already had enough spin. You've seen in Chennai when they play, they rely so much on spin because of the conditions. Harbhajan Singh, obviously, experience, that kind of experience, quality that you lose, it is going to be a loss. But I think CSK have a lot more cover in that department, at least, as far as spin's concerned. They've got Piyush Chawla as well that they've brought in this year. They've got Tahir, they've got Santner. So they've got enough spin. They'd be hoping the conditions are in their favor, like what they get at Chennai, which is a little bit of turn. Then those spinners come into play. As far as Chahar is concerned, he might struggle. I know Dhoni depends on him a lot to start with the new bowler, bowls him up front a lot. But when you've not played cricket for as long as all these players have, plus he's had this extra sort of quarantine because of turning positive, might have less preparation time. But hopefully the fitness levels are there. It's about getting the skills right and getting some sort of bowling into your legs. And when they have some practice games, he's probably going to be ready.
Scotty, so many players just thrive on the energy of that 12th man. What kind of an adjustment is this going to be for players this season?
Yeah, I don't think it'll be too much of an adjustment for the overseas players. A lot of the overseas players play in front of small crowds or even empty grounds on a regular basis. So they'll be used to that. But you're right, the Indian players, I can't remember. I mean, Kohli 10 years ago, most of those players have been around long enough now that they won't struggle, but they'll just wonder where they are and look for that energy in other ways.
Ajit, how about you? Any different perspectives on this?
Might be a bit odd the first couple of games, but at the end of the day, you're grateful enough that the tournament's taking place. You're getting to play some cricket. I mean, a lot of these guys are at the peak of their careers, not having cricket for 6 months. That's a huge loss when you're doing so well in your career. So they'll be very excited to actually play the tournament. It might be a little bit odd at the start, and like Scotty said, that energy sometimes that you get from crowds, particularly in India. The IPLs move to the UAE, but in India, it can almost sometimes act like a 12th man for the home team, which perhaps may not be the case, but I think players will get used to it.
There may not be a Slinger Malinga this season for the Mumbai Indians, and that also might mean that we don't see him playing next season, next year. Ajit, this must be a really huge blow for the Mumbai Indians side.
It is. I mean, we saw what he did over the last couple of seasons. I mean, one of the seasons he wasn't part of the team. They got him in as a bowling consultant. Then the next season he played and won them a IPL trophy. So that kind of quality and experience you cannot replace. I mean, he's been one of the all-time great T20 bowlers in the world. So it is a loss because of the experience that he has as well. Fortunately for Mumbai, while you can't replace someone like a Malinga, they've got a lot of quality in that bowling lineup. I mean, Bumrah now has been around for a few years, 5, 6, 7 years. He's obviously learnt a lot playing with Malinga, and he's one of the top bowlers in the world at the moment. And this format is getting as good as how Malinga has been through his career. So they've got enough. I mean, that's one team that usually starts one of the favorites when the tournament starts, and there's a reason, because they've got most bases covered.
And Scotty, with RCB, there's an interesting change. Kane Richardson is out, and instead Adam Zampa comes in. He's a pretty useful one to have up your sleeve, especially given the conditions in the UAE, right?
I think all the IPL teams will be studying the trends of the games that they've seen, particularly something like the PSL, which has played all their cricket in the UAE by and large. They've also, whilst they've been at a different time of the year, you still get a bit of a feeling how the pitches will play. And we, of course, know here that, the research that we're doing, that Abu Dhabi is more of a spin bowling surface than what Dubai is, and even Sharjah, which seems to be better for batting. So depending on where these teams play their games will also depend on the makeup of their side. So I like what RCB have done. They've covered their bases with another spinner, just in case this long tournament and the heat of Dubai and the heat of the UAE just sees the pitches get slower and lower, or even start to turn a bit more. And then they can bring someone like Zampa in once they've got a gauge of how these conditions play. So you'll see that a lot. I think you'll see the teams try and cover all their bases, not only just with the fit of the overseas players, but also the grounds and the pitches and the heat, and trying to make sure that everybody stays fresh.
Ajit, how important is it this season especially to have these kinds of common areas where players can bond and just relax a bit?
Yeah, I think it's going to be key. I think the support staff's going to have to work a lot harder in this particular season than perhaps some previous seasons gone by, because it is, we're sitting at home here. You don't quite know how tough it is just to be confined to your hotel and then just ground. It is going to be a long, 2.5, 3 months almost, that the teams will end up being there in the UAE. So it is going to be difficult, and those sorts of things you need. You need some downtime. You need to sort of let go, because anyway you're always going to be under pressure. Plus the added thing of a bio bubble at this point. It is going to be tough on the players. So the support staff have their work cut out to keep everyone in a good, happy space.
And Scotty, do you agree with that team morale is going to be playing a really big factor in making sure that teams are successful out there on the field?
Yeah, totally agree with what Ajit said there regarding the team management having a greater role. I've always believed with the IPL, when the tournament is in India in particular, that the Indian players, because there's more Indian players than foreigners, they dictate the culture of the group and how everybody fits in. I think the foreign players take a greater lead when it comes to helping the youngsters out, the young Indian players who are coming through. I think that's their job. Now it's going to be different. And I totally agree that it's still going to be the senior players, and it's still going to be the management. Now, it might mean creating little themes and games. I know Stephen Fleming with CSK has changed and had a different theme every tournament. So I have no doubt that he'll have something planned as well for that particular CSK side. I'm sure all the coaches will do the same with all their respective IPL teams to make sure that nobody's spending too long in your room. That's always the fear for a team even, let alone the management.
It's now the business end of the CPL. We've seen some pretty great things from the likes of Andre Russell, Sunil Narayan. Ajit, I have to ask you, with KKR, they must be pretty chuffed to have these players coming in, already kind of warmed up straight into the IPL now.
Yeah, they'd be very excited. I think one of the things that you've looked at CPL a lot more this year is they've got a little bit of a head start to the guys who are in the UAE. I know there'll be lots of training sessions or match simulations that the teams would be doing in the UAE, but there's nothing like playing a proper competitive game, which all these guys at the CPL and then if your players are doing well, and as well as Narayan and Russell have done in this tournament, anyone with good form is going to be a huge benefit for the teams in the IPL coming from the CPL, because like I said, they will have a little bit of head start.
And Scotty, do you agree that it would be quite an advantage to have these players who are coming in? They've already been flexing their muscles in the CPL. They're almost ready to hit the ground running in the IPL.
Yeah, especially the match winners, the key players for some of these sides. And we only have to look at, well, you've already talked about Russell and Narayan, but even Kyron Pollard, who had a pretty good IPL last year, and he's already done well this year. He's averaging 55 at a striker rate of 206 in the Caribbean League. So he's playing really well, which will please the Mumbai Indians management no end. But there's a couple of other players who we've seen in the IPL who I think need to have greater roles in their sides. One of those, Nicolas Porter as well, who's the second leading run scorer in the CPL. I think for Kings 11 to have a big tournament, he needs to be given real responsibility. He needs to be moved up to, not quite to the top of the order, but certainly given a majority of the deliveries in that innings to face, and someone else like Hetmeyer, who's been the leading run scorer as well. Not sure how he fits in with the Delhi Capitals, such as the strength and depth of that batting lineup in particular. He may have to wait his turn, but these are talented players who we see in the IPL. We see that they can be match winners. Some of them need a chance. Some of the older players, I think it's terrific that they're going to hit the ground running, as Ajit said.
Dream 11 IPL 2020 is starting on September 19th, and we have the fixtures. Of course, it's starting in the only way it can, with the biggest rivalry in the IPL when Mumbai Indians take on the Chennai Super Kings. Scotty, would you have expected anything less from the opening night?
No, look, I love it when you get a match like this. Two biggest teams in the competition, the biggest rivalry there is. I'd love to see the tournament kick off in this fashion. I'd love to see it happen every year, in fact, just to get the tournament off with a bang. I can't wait. So many world superstars on show. You usually find one, if not both of these teams are there at the business end come finals night. So I'm expecting that to be the case once again.
Ajit, what are your expectations for this opening match?
Huge. I mean, they've, again, two most successful teams in this in the IPL through their history. Like Scotty said, lots of experience and lots of quality, or world-class quality in both teams. You don't expect anything but a tight contest.